Okay. Hi, my name is Liselotte Lyngso. I'm a founding partner of Future Navigator, and I've been working as a futurist for 20 years now. I started out in the European Commission, making scenarios for European integration, making a project called Scenarios for Europe 2010. And what you use the future for is really as a strategic tool to try and see what kind of changes are in the horizons and how do you start training for it. So basically, the future is not at all interesting unless you start pulling it back to your own present and then starting to prepare for it. So let me give you a crazy example. The bank robber, for instance. That used to be a very nice profession, you know, robbing banks, putting a hood over your head, going in to the bank. I don't know if you have those in Moscow, but these days are over. The bank robber has no bank to rob. There are no money anymore. We all pay in a cashless society. We have virtual transactions. Soon there will be virtual coins. So in order to be a bank robber, you need to train for the future. You need to be a cyber robber. Last year, I saw that they calculated it's $445 billion worth of cyber robbery. So it's just to give you an example. You think it's not only the robber who needs to spot and train for the future. We as businesses need to do the same thing. This picture, I hope I'm not speaking too fast. Is it okay? Otherwise, please let me know. This picture, anyway, is an old picture of the lifting theory of Archimedes. So the Y, the little Y, is normally a very little rock. And if you have that, you are able to solve big problems. So for instance, if I give you an example of this future, if we have a cashier, somebody sitting in the shop, right? These days will soon be over. In today, the cashier will pass through the grocery and they will have no value. So you might as well have a robot. In Japan, they now have a hotel only equipped by robots. So if you need to train for the future, you have to ask yourself, what sort of value is the cashier making? Why is she important to the world or to society? For instance, if she inspires you to buy something else when you come through with your food and they say, are you buying chicken again? Maybe you should buy something different. We can see that if people shop on the internet, they shop 30 percentage point more in the real shop if they get inspiration. So that would keep the cashier having her job. The other thing, letting the cashier keeping her job would be to spot the future trends, taking picture of crazy people doing new things, telling it to the head office so they could prepare for the future. So basically, if she's not doing that, there will be automation. You know, scanners will check people out when they leave the shop and they will ask you on your phone, do you want the grocery? And you just say yes. So everybody needs to train for this future. How do you go about it? Well, you need some kind of filter of how is the future going to impact on you. For instance, I have just worked with a big engineering company and they did a pitch for a big train wagon in Dubai, and they had a big problem because the German competitor who came there, they had created this great virtual train wagon. The client could go in there, they could try out the train wagon, they could have the feel of how it's going to be, and they got so sad and upset, these engineers, because they had made all the right calculations, they had all the right numbers, they said, we can keep our deadline, we have a good offer for you, but they were refused because they were not able to communicate. So as we heard the other speakers as well, the ability to interconnect with your client is so important in this future. So you need to have simplicity. So it needs to be short hair in the front, all the complex things in the back. That's really what simplicity is about. So you can communicate, so you can co-create with other people. That's a very important future trend. For instance, for this engineering company to start training for the future, they actually need to employ people who can create these holograms that can inspire their clients in new ways. So everybody is met by these future challenges, and then the very important thing is translating it into something useful in your business. There are so many cases that people start producing things that are no longer valuable. And when I started as a futurist, the future came very slow. And these days, it's far more like a shark tale. It happens from one day to the next due to the disruptive technology that are exploding, and also because we have crowdfunding. So you have people collaborating from the whole world, solving new problems, finding new ideas. So the speed of which we are actually challenging businesses are increasing. So becoming a futurist, luckily it's not a protected title. It's about working across different disciplines, and it's looking at these tracks that are inspiring us that the future is about to arrive. So, for instance, you can say, what does the way we map future trends? It's very simple. We take a picture of a change from one thing to the other. It could be from words to pictures, or let's say the driverless car as a future trend. One way of mapping it is to ask yourself, is this a hard trend, the driverless car? Is it arriving? Well, it's already driving around in Australia, it's driving around cities in the UK, it's driving around in the States. The new Tesla model, electricity, can park by itself, can drive by itself. So yes, it's a hard trend. We have no choice. This driverless car is coming, so it would go to the top. Your next question is then, does it have an influence on my business? Say, for instance, you are selling soft drinks. Will it have an influence that you have the driverless car, you think? Well, yes, probably it will, because will people with driverless cars ever go to the petrol station in the future? I don't think so. Petrol stations are boring. Petrol stations are designed for cars, not for people. So nobody's going to buy soft drinks at a petrol station in this future. So if your business model is right now based on selling soft drinks at petrol stations, you better be aware of this very hard trend that the driverless car is coming in a moment, and it will have a big influence on your business. On the other hand, if you are doing something completely different, I don't know, if you're building houses, will it be having a big influence on you? Yes, probably it will, because the driverless car, most probably it's going to drive taxi for other people while you're not using your car. So there's no need for car parking in the future. And at least there are no need for expensive car parking places in the future, as the car can drive off and park by itself. So we can remove all these parking places in a big city like Moscow. So maybe we should start building houses there. So how is that hard trend affecting the building business? So you see, when you work as a futurist, it's not enough just spotting a new technology. You have to go deeper and deeper. I have just spent time with a big telecommunication company, and they're already discussing, if we're driving taxis together in the driverless car, will we communicate with each other, or will we be sitting on our devices not communicating? That's the sort of scenarios you have to work with dealing with the future. Soft trends, on the other hand, is things where you have a choice. For instance, Would you like it tailor-made with your personal story? We move from storytelling to my story. People like to have information tailored specifically to them. Well, maybe it has a big influence on your company, but maybe you can choose to use that future trend for your strategy, or you can choose not to. So that's a soft trend. This is just to give you an idea that working with the future is really about using a lot of different methods. So one thing is spotting the changes that will change the priority of people, the way we live, work, act, and how we consume. The other thing is then downloading these trends, trying to map them, and then it's after that it's creating future-based ideas development, where you actually decide what to start training for. So basically what you want to avoid is that you build a business, like you build a bridge, or you construct a big business and you construct it for a reality which will no longer be there. This picture is from Honduras, where they built this fantastic bridge, except there was a big storm of change that moved the water away. And what happened is that the bridge is there, but it's completely useful. It will have no clients on it. It will have no people on it. So as a final point, I want to talk about what sort of abilities do you need to train in order to become a great futurist. And of course, we have courses and we have books and webinars that can train you to become a much better futurist. It takes some time, it takes some training. The first habit in terms of spotting the future is changing from becoming a human resource to becoming a human revolutionary. I'm not talking about going into war or anything. I'm talking about revolutionizing the way we think about business. We know that there's automation, robots are coming. So if we think as a robot, there won't be any job for us. However, if we start to solve the problems that we have in the world, we have climate challenges, we have congestion challenges in terms of traffic, we have a lot of elderly people who are sitting all by themselves, who are lonely and have a hard time taking care of themselves. If we start to look at those challenges, there are plenty of jobs to solve. I was giving the example in the beginning with the cashier. If she's just tapping in the grocery, she has no value in this future. But if she's actually spotting new ideas and giving this inspiration for people entering the shop, she is a human revolutionary. If a woman who is working in the nursing system is afraid that there will be a robot vacuum cleaner coming up, well, she still has a lot of business to do in building network amongst people, allowing them to cook, allowing them to have a good elderly life. So I hope you understand, moving from human resource to human revolutionary is really looking outside in at your business, understanding what sort of positive change can you provide to society. The other thing is being not irritated like these engineers, being irritated about the German team that won the train wagon, but using this irritation, saying, why are we so frustrated that they won? They created this hologram train wagon. Maybe that's a trend in society. Maybe it's a change that we need to tap into. Thank you that I'm so irritated. That's fantastic. I want to create this. And the good part in being irritated is that it gives you new brain cells every day. You get new brain cells every day, and if you are very irritated and you use it constructively, your brain cells will stay alive. Otherwise, they die. So being irritated and translating it into curiosity is a very important tool in working with the future. Finally, it's creating simplicity. If you are communicating about your own business in a very complex way, nobody's able to help you. You need to be crowd working, so you need to be able to describe your work and the sense of things you are doing so other people can understand, other different academic backgrounds can understand. That way you can develop much faster into the market. So that's a whole crowd creation coming into this. And then it's not about talking more, it's about listening louder. What does society need? You know, the tin can was invented, and then it took 49 years for the tin can opener to come about. You know, a tin can and the tin can opener, 49 years. Meanwhile, you ask people, is there something you need? Dad thought it was fine to open the tin can with an axe or shooting it up with his gun. So people cannot say tin can opener when it doesn't exist. So basically, the challenge of listening louder is finding out, we heard that before as well, the stuff that you don't know, you can't live without. You can't Google that kind of thing. I had a frozen business. They are making frozen bread here in the Nordic countries, and they came, Lisa, we would really like to move into the Chinese market. If we could sell this frozen bread, it's a bake-off bread in the Chinese market, we will become very rich. And I said, well, let's listen louder to China. Let's invite some Chinese people. And they said, no Chinese people. We just want to speak in the Nordic language. And then I insisted, please, let's have just one Chinese person. I know somebody who can speak half Chinese, half Scandinavian, and he's not a challenge. He's not a challenge to your business. After 2 hours, he puts his hands up and he says, I'm sorry, guys, but you know, in China, we have no oven. We steam our bread. We have no ovens. And they looked at each other. So it's just an example that you don't know what you don't know, you can't live without. In China, they have no ovens and they had to close the strategy. Not long ago, I received an email from one of these guys and he said, Lisa, maybe we can sell the oven and the bread together. But it's a good example that if you want to create something for the future, you have to listen louder of what's going on. And then you need to be able to speak data. We are moving into a digital society and you have to be able to co-create globally and you have to listen and you have to spot trends all over the world. So for instance, in Japan, they are now using robot muscles on the building societies. You can use that for carrying the old people as a nurse here in Denmark. So we have this saying that the future already exists. It just depends on where you look. And in terms of being a futurist, it's getting really, really exciting because we're getting all this smart data. We're moving from big data to smart data. My hands are full of different bracelets that are monitoring everything I do. Last night I slept really bad and my bracelet told me 90% of people who are sleeping really bad like you are for a prolonged period of time of maybe 1 or 2 months, they develop a depression. Then my smartphone is telling me, Lisa, you have to meditate, you have to power nap, you have to take better care of yourself. And then my bracelet is telling my smartphone, okay, now you're back on track. That will apply for learning, for teaching. So we will get this feedback. What are other people doing? And who is doing what? So in the old days, we were guessing what our clients were doing. We were asking them. And these days, it's there's no need to ask. We have a complete reality picture of what are people doing when they're doing what they're doing. In the Nordic countries, if you ask people how much they go to the theater, they go to the theater 4 times less than they say. But if you ask them how much sugar and candy they eat, there are millions of tons of sugar and candy missing every year. So we say one thing and we do something else. So using this smart data will also be a great advantage of becoming this futurist in your business. So I really invite you to delve more into this and learning some of these methods of spotting and training to the future. I cannot see how you can survive as a business if you're not able to look at your surrounding world outside in a methodological manner and start training for it. Otherwise, you might risk having this famous Kodak moment. You know, there were a few people who had seen the digital photo coming, but nobody was serious about it. They wanted to talk about papers and prints. And today we have no Kodak moment any longer. Likewise, it's really important to look at what are the big game changers for your company. So be my guest, ask me everything you would like, and I'll be happy to take your questions now. Thank you. And I hope I didn't speak too fast. I hope you understood what I was saying. I don't hear you. I don't know if I'm supposed to hear anything. Lisa, do you need any? Ah, oh, good point. Can you hear me still? Great. Can they hear me? Oh, I forgot. I was answering. Okay, the 6 points. That's enjoy the stinking phase. The stinking phase is really when you start spotting the future, you can be sure that you're only actually starting to implement the future when you're going into the stinking phase, because it's usually doing something completely different. Let me go back to the Kodak. You used to have papers and print, and obviously digital photos is something completely different. Likewise, the car industry is now moving in to the driverless car industry. They're moving into electric cars, and it's something completely different. So there's a huge stinking phase there. So basically, we always ask big businesses around the world, so what do you think will happen in the future? And people are very ambitious. They say, oh, this will happen and that will happen, and then we're going to do this. And the final question is always, you as a manager, are you going to change? Are you going to start training anything? And they always say, no, my job is going to stay the same. So the point is spotting the big future, what is impacting your business, and then asking yourself and your staff, so how are you going to start training for it? What are your first baby steps? So for instance, these engineers that I mentioned before, they actually took a course in drawing pictures so that they could create infographics about their work instead of having these long, heavy reports. Because they know the next generation of young people, they are used to watch movies, and they use films, and they are not willing to read long reports. They want to have some kind of interaction. So it's just a good picture of the stinking face. So basically, it's like if you learned a new grip in tennis and you play really bad, then people are telling you, can you please play tennis as you always play tennis? And you have to say, no, I have to stick with this new grip. I'm playing really bad for a long time now, but after that I will get much better, but please be patient. And that patience is very hard in business. It's really hard for business to accept this stinking phase, that you need some time to practice in terms of jumping the curve and moving it.
Hello? Can you hear us? Yes?
In terms of using math and science, we are using it all the time. We are both using it as an eye-opener. We use Google Trends and other things to see that now something is happening. For instance, we realized that loneliness can actually create health diseases. The fact that people are working so much on the distance, on the internet, not being together with people. In Denmark, it's now 40% of people who are living by themselves and working by themselves. That is actually creating some health problems. We got the statistics from France saying that, for instance, women with breast cancer, not interconnecting physically with other people, have a lower chance of surviving. And they're starting to measure, what does it mean that when you hug somebody, when they pass the exam, and if you phone them, there is a change in the mood. But if you just write a text message, there's no reaction whatsoever. That's a sort of health statistics that we then use to start creating a hypothesis in terms of what does it mean for urban city living, that young people are not necessarily meeting each other anymore, but sitting in separate rooms. And then, of course, we start testing these ideas. Also, we had a hypothesis that people sleep shorter time than they did 10 years ago. They sleep half an hour shorter. And that, of course, has some consequences for our health, for our way of doing knowledge work as well. So you're completely right. It means that we talk to people, deliver a hypothesis, and then we verify it. And sometimes new science is an eye-opener to see a new trend emerging. So very often the future already exists. It's just unevenly distributed. It's often happening in a different business. So for instance, text messaging was happening already for a long time within the telecommunication businesses as a communication tool. And then it took many years for normal people to have text messages. Likewise, we keep our eye open all the time for new technologies, new game changers that will transform the way we think. Okay, thank you very much. Good meeting you. Bye bye.